like I was pretty much a live stream creator for 2.5 years. I was going live every day for 4 hours. It was
Oh, wow.
10 p. Yeah, straight, 4 hours straight, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single night.
What's up, everyone? This is Justin Kyle. Welcome to my podcast, The Quest, where I dive into the ups and downs of trailblazers around me to help you figure out life and get to where you want to be. As always, you know what to do. Smash subscribe and ring that bell for new, unfiltered conversations dropping every Tuesday. Today, my guest is Josh Richards. He's a TikTok megastar, a VC, and the co-founder of multiple companies. And most amazingly, Josh actually never graduated from high school. Josh is a young person who I find has incredible maturity. If you want to get started early on your path as a Gen Zer, you could learn a lot from him. Here's Josh. Please enjoy. All right, perfect. Josh, thanks for joining me.
All right, thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk today. I really want to get in the heads of, people who listen to podcasts know I'm obsessed with the young, and I feel like you're the iconic, emblematic Gen Zer. And so I really want to get in the heads of young people everywhere. And I feel like you're my access point to understand what's going on with Gen Z.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. We're with being a TikToker and a social media influencer, every single one of our supporters and even like the people around us too are always in Gen Z. So it's, what we live and breathe.
And a little bit later, I'm going to ask you for TikTok tips. And it's going to be like you taking pity on an old man. I have another friend of mine, Jen, who's been helping me out with the YouTube channel I'm going to launch and TikTok. And she literally had to walk me through using the interface, like green screen and all this stuff. And it was like when I used to walk my mom or my dad through using a computer.
No, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, that's like me with my parents. It's like, oh, no. That's not how you follow someone. That's how you like a video. Like, let's go through this again. Let's do a training session. It's so funny.
Exactly. So now I'm on the other side of the hill. I'm on the old side, which is sad, but that's just one day it's going to be you. You're going to be in my position. You're going to be some internet mogul and have all these businesses, and there's going to be some new Zigzag or whatever, some new platform. It's going to be like a brain computer platform. And then you're going to have your kid or some young kid describe how to use it for you. You're like, I keep thinking go right, but it keeps going left. What's going on?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. I can't wait actually for that. That's going to be funny.
All right. So let's start at the beginning. I want to hear about how you got into being a creator and, how did you even get started on this path? My understanding from, talking to our mutual friends is you have really normal parents, normal family from Canada. So what made you get started on okay, I want to be a creator?
Yeah. So it was actually my sister. My sister posted a video of me on her account. She just asked me to get in this Musical.ly. That's what it was called at the time. It was before ByteDance came in and acquired Musical.ly and bought it. So I made this video with her. It did well on her account. She was showing me all the comments, people asking what my account was and what my @ name was. And then I felt great because girls were giving me attention, you know what I mean? And I was this 14-year-old kid. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start a Musical.ly account. I was a competitive kid too. I always played sports. So I was like, if I don't hit 10K followers by the end of the summer, I have 2 months. It's the start of the summer now. If I don't hit that goal, I'm quitting. If I do hit it, I'll keep going. So instantly I started getting my sister to come in with me and unfollow people on the app. I was getting her to go in and like people's videos so they would see my account. And we were going it was all math. I was figuring out how many people I needed to follow a day, how many videos I needed to like a day to get these followers. And I made a goal of 250 followers every day. And then I knew by the end of the summer, I would hit my goal of 10K. So it was this extreme laid out plan of how we were going to almost growth hack my following on social media. And then we just more and more got involved in that growth hacking. We found a leaderboard in the TikTok or in the Musical.ly live stream category where it actually posted the top gifters. So you would see the 200 top donators, much like Twitch where there's donations, right? They actually showed a leaderboard of who was spending the most money. So as a creator, I'm like, I want those fans, right? I want those. Those are the consumers I want. I have access to them right there. So I had my sister every time I was live. That leaderboard updated every 24 hours, and she would go in there and just follow and unfollow people and get everyone to see my account because she'd be logged into my account at the same time. I'd give her a 15% commission-based salary. The people would come into my live while she was doing the follows, unfollows. They would see I'm live, join me, and then those top donators would just donate to me like crazy. And I was this account with like, at that point, we had done it for maybe like 6 months. I was an account getting like the top 5 donations and likes on a live stream with only 90,000 followers, with other accounts having like tens of millions or millions of followers, and they're getting beat by me or right above me just by 1 or 2 slots. So it was like an instant, we're going to growth hack the hell out of this.
That's so interesting, because what I found is I think a lot of people think that, you know, you post a video and then boom, it's like you're done, right? It's like you like, became famous. And what's interesting is it reminds me of this conversation I had with my friends Alex and Drew from the Chainsmokers, who toiled. You know, they were figuring out how to, like, they were making remixes of popular songs, and then they would figure out how to blast those to all the blogs at the time. You know, those were the tastemakers. And they were looking at Hype Machine for like, what's the popular song for me to remix so that we can get our name out there just like a little bit more. And they had this email list of blogs, and they were really like trying to systematically attack growth. And, you know, it wasn't just like an overnight thing. It took them a long time to get there, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, like for me, me and my sister were doing that on my account for probably, I mean, definitely that 2 months going hard every single day of the summer. And then after that, for still another year, we were doing that into the next summer, still doing it. And then I got to a point where I was big enough. I still wasn't big. I hadn't hit my, you know, big blow up yet. I was probably at 200K followers on the app. But I was big enough to where it was growing on its own. I didn't need to do that extra work, but I just had to get to that place. You know what I mean?
So tell me about, like, what's the content that resonated with people? Like, how did you decide what kind of content to create?
Yeah. So back then, when I was first starting, I knew Musical.ly was a dying platform. I saw the numbers. I saw the creators. I saw the big creators even stepping off the app and being like, oh, I don't need Musical.ly anymore, right? I'm too big for this app. That was a lot of people's mindset. So I knew it'd be really hard to actually gain and get traction on this app that's already going down. So I just focused on live streaming. Like, I was pretty much a live stream creator for 2.5 years. I was going live every day for 4 hours. It was straight, 4 hours straight, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single night. And then sometimes I would throw in like a little extra one in the morning for maybe 30 minutes. But it was just my way of like making income. So I would wake up, post my 3 videos a day right away in the morning, go to the beach, and then come home and just go live for 4 hours. That was like my schedule every day for a year and a half. And then as I started taking it more and more serious, I started implementing more creative ideas. So I started realizing, oh, there's a For You page now. TikTok has come in and bought Musical.ly. There has to be something more here. What is this For You page? What's the algorithm? And studied that it was based all on comments and then shares. So if someone is commenting a lot on your video, or someone is saving your video to their favorites, they're sending it to a friend, anything that has to do with that, your video gets pushed out on that TikTok For You page like crazy. And I found that out very, very quickly, and started then thinking, what videos do I need to post to create the most shares and the most comments? And what came to my mind was tutorials, right? If you are watching a tutorial video, you're watching it because you want to learn something. So then you're going to go either save it, or you're going to send it to a friend that you have that same common, like want in learning in that like category. Or maybe you guys both like cooking and it's a tutorial on cooking. So you're like, oh, I'm going to send this to my friend, right? As well, it engages comments because people ask for clarification on the tutorial, or they ask about a part 2 to the tutorial, right? And so when I first created my first ever tutorial video, it was on a camera transition on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen people do transitions with the cameras to make cool videos, but it was pretty much where I could take a hoodie and I threw it. And then when the hoodie landed like on the ground, it was almost like I was like landed with the hoodie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it came back on top of me. And I did a tutorial for it and it got something like 60 million views. Like it blew up, like absolutely just blew up. I went up like 300,000 followers, I think, in like a day or two. And then I was like, all right, that's obviously what's resonating with the audience. I'm gonna start doing one tutorial video every single week on top of my other content. So it was just really, for me, it was always studying the algorithm or finding like growth hacks to know what I needed to post.
I love that. And it seems like you were very dedicated to, once you figured something out, you were like, I'm going to do this very consistently and systematically, right? Like I'm going to live stream every day and have these set hours. Like I have so many questions about it, but my first is really like, how did you have that discipline? You know, when I was 18 or when I was 16, I like didn't do anything every day. Like I couldn't, you know, I was not a disciplined kid. So I'm wondering, where did that drive come from to like really kind of make this into like a business almost, or like really attack it in such a systematic way?
Right. One, I've always been a business-minded kid. Like since I was 12 years old, I had like a jar in my room where I was always trying to find different business ventures to fill that jar up with money. Right. And it was like, I never really wanted to spend it. I just wanted to have it. So I was always doing just passion projects. If it was like, I was a hockey player, so I created a little small like company that was selling business hockey shirts, right? Like, slogans on the hockey shirts, like hockey slang, etc. And then did the same thing for lacrosse with lacrosse mesh. I was dyeing it. I was stringing sticks and doing all that. So I kind of always was just trying to find a way to go in at a business mind. Like I was always on schedule. My dad was a coach, so he was always coaching me in sports. So I was very like disciplined in the athletic sense, where it's like you have a practice, you show up 30 minutes early, an hour early. There's no like you get there when it's time to go. You know what I mean? So there's no missing practice. There's no missing a game. So I was just always trained that way, I feel like.
Yeah. And so when I was, we started Twitch, it started off as completely different. It was me and my friends trying to make our own live show, but we weren't as entertaining as people are now. We were like, we're mostly on our computers, a fucking boring show, to be honest. And so, but I told my parents, I'm like, I'm going to live stream to the internet 24/7. That's my like new job. And they were just like, like mind blown, like what is he talking about? But they were pretty supportive actually. And I think that was surprising to a lot of people. Like, how did your parent, like if you were streaming live 10 to 2 every day, like what did they think about that?
Well, it was funny because at the start, they didn't really know what I was doing. They thought I was just doing one of my other like side little business things that I was always up to. They didn't understand it. So they were just like letting me have fun with it. And then all of a sudden I had hooked up my parents' PayPal to my TikTok because I didn't have a PayPal, and I needed to cash out. I needed to cash out the money I was making. I was like, I'm not letting this money sit here. So then all of a sudden my dad started getting alerts for like $500, $600, $700, like, and they're like these cash outs like every week. And he was like, what is going on? Why am I, where's this money coming from in my PayPal? Yeah. So then he went down to me and he was like, Josh, like, are you selling drugs or something? Like, what are you doing? like all of a sudden you're just making like $500, $100 a day, like as a 14-year-old kid, like what's happening? So at that point, I then explained to them more and more, like what I was up to, what I was doing with my social media, the live streaming aspect of it. And honestly, they were so used to me coming up with these crazy ideas or doing these like crazy little experiments that they were just supportive right off the start. Like, to them, this was cleaner than my lacrosse company where I was dyeing mesh and then destroying the carpet in my basement and getting like this clothing dye all over the place so that they had to come downstairs and like renovate the whole basement. Like, it's for them, it was like, hey, this is less of a mess. Whatever it is, we're happy. Do you?
That's awesome. I love that. It reminds me of my own situation where I think when I told my parents, I'm like, oh, I'm going to stream live as this is my job. We're going to start a company around this and I'm going to be live 24/7. People are going to watch me at all times. They were like, that's weird, but you're already entrepreneurial. And so this is just maybe the next weird thing that you're doing or whatever. We don't get it, but it'll be whatever. It'll be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly how my parents' mindset was.
So when did you decide to go like professional on it and like, I'm going to do this full time?
Yeah, I think it was probably my 11th grade in high school. I was starting to get a lot of traction on the app. I was starting to become more and more like one of the like faces of TikTok, right? Like one of those
Yeah.
people that you always see on the For You page. And then I started getting asked to go on tours. And that's when I started thinking to myself, okay, like I can turn this into something that actually lasts a long time or into a real career, because we were doing these tours and I was having like to me, it was the craziest thing that 1,000, 2,000 girls would buy tickets just to like come take a picture with us, right? I was like, what the heck is happening? Why are these girls that interested in us? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? Because I was from a small town, 15, 10,000 people. So even though at that point I had 2 million, 3 million, 4 million followers, no one in my town cared because they already knew me before I did social media. So it was like, I'm still just Josh Richards. And then it's not like it was so weird. Like there's no towns around my town. So it wasn't like there's a big city with like people coming around and being like, oh, I only know him from social media. I don't also go to school with him. Like everyone just went to school with me.
Yeah.
So it was kind of strange. Yeah. But I think it was that year just finding out like everything that I can make of it. And then the 12th year of high school, I did online school. And that's when I really started taking it serious because I had more time to allocate to, social media and the business side of social media as well.
Is that when you moved to LA?
I moved, yeah. So in my 12th grade of high school, I moved here probably about halfway through the year.
Yeah. And how did you know, like, I want to be in LA? This is the place where it's happening. Like, what was the thought process like for you?
Yeah. So I finished up the tours. I ended up in LA after the tours because there was still summer left. And in Canada, summer goes a little bit longer than the States too. So I was like using that time to spend in LA, still network with like other creators, do collabs and keep growing while I was still kind of growing off that tour hype. And I ended up at Bryce Hall's house. When I was at Bryce's house, I brought over my friends Jaden and Anthony. And then they ended up staying there with us. We ended up staying that night with Bryce. We all like partied. And then I met Michael Gruen while I was there at Bryce's. And it's kind of like we just all came together. And me and Michael started talking about the business side. And I talked about the tour and how the tours ripped us off. We made the tour like $1 million plus. I think I got paid $750 like cash. That's like it. Like I got $750, like not even $1,000. It was brutal. And like everyone has stories like that from the tours. So just talking to Michael and being like, there's no one in this industry protecting the creators. There's no real managers. The agents in the agency scene hadn't come in yet. Like there was no CAA and UTA signing TikTokers, and there was no like actors union like for TikTokers, right? So I was talking to him about that, and then we thought of Talent X and kind of starting the Sway House. So that's why I moved to LA to start all that.
So kind of like from that one night, it was like, okay, let's start a content house and a talent agency to protect the talent. And
yeah, that's where the conversation started. I would say Michael and I talked, and then I kept staying at Bryce's for a while. We all just developed our friendship as boys. And it just was cool because the Sway Boys wasn't like a put together group like a lot of these other TikTok houses where it's like, oh, you're big, you're not as big, but we think we can grow you. Let's grab this person because their parents paid a lot of money to the house. And then, you know what I mean? Like, It was really just, yo, we're all friends and we post together all the time. Why not just live together as well? So that was like the cool part about Sway, which made it really authentic.
I love that part. It reminds me of, when we were starting Justin TV and Twitch. It's like my co-founders and I, we lived together. We just worked together, lived together. It was a fun time because that's all we had going on, but it was like we were really good friends first,
Yeah.
So I want to go back to that, but I'd love to dig in on like, do you feel like because you were working so much on this and building this, and there was this kind of fame component, that there was anything missing from like your high school experience or your experience growing up?
I mean, definitely. I think it's one of those things that's just like a sacrifice, right? I get to experience a lot of cool things that most high schoolers would never get to experience. I got to live in LA with my best friends at the age of 17. Like that's crazy, right? Like in a LA mansion, 17, and I'm like, get to do whatever I want. I make my own rules. So a lot of kids in high school would be like, fuck a graduation and fuck a prom. I'll give that up and go spend it like being in this LA scene. So, I mean, there's a lot of times where like I'll see like graduation videos on the internet or like a prom video on the internet, and I'm like sad because I didn't get to experience that.
Yeah.
But I think more than just like one event or anything like that, what I miss is just you can't, it sucks, but you can't pick both. Like you can't decide to be the kid that does social media and gets like the attention on the social media side, but then expect to go to school and everyone just like not bring it up and treat you like a regular kid, right? Like I got made fun of all the time at school, or I was kind of like picked on or looked at as weird or like this cringy social media kid that's like wasting his time on social media. So it was like, it was such a, yeah, it's just like a weird high school experience. So of course I wish I could have been better. Of course I wish that like I could have blown up on TikTok just like overnight right after 12th grade and then like just went on to be like where I'm at right now. That would have been a perfect scenario, but we can't all be Noah Beck. So
yeah,
it's whatever.
That's pretty, I love that awareness because there's this quote that I really love from Ray Dalio's book, Principles, where he says, you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want.
Right. Yeah.
And it sounds like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is exactly like that.
Okay. So then you moved to LA, you're like in the Sway house, you guys are creating content, things are going well. It's growing. Tell me about like, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So probably the craziest, most like, I would say just like, if you could have the movie like Project X in real life.
By the way, I love that movie. That's so funny.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie. But that was like our life for 6.5 months to 8 months. It was like just, we came to LA. We were all young kids, like coming to this scene, and then all of a sudden getting all this money thrown at us, getting all these like free clothes and getting invited to all these clubs, and then also getting into any party. It was like we got all this attention right away. And I think that it was super fun and it was awesome, but we just kind of like, we abused it, I would say, right? Like just being kids, like just what any kid would do or what any kid does when they go to college, right? Like they first make a few mistakes, realizing like, oh wait, my parents were right. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this while I have school the next day, or maybe the times they told me, you know what I mean? Like you just kind of start to learn these lessons like on your own. And then you start like, kind of like, shoot, my parents weren't actually the wrong ones every single time they grounded me. It's like, it was just like figuring those things out on our own. And then when we did, when we finally started getting into, I think like the actual role of posting and getting on a bunch of different like brand ideas and building out our own brands and getting into investing, when we really started rolling, it was just like, it felt awesome because we were just go mode, and we still are. So I think that's just been the really fun part, and the really cool part is to see how much work we've been able to get done.
Sure. Yeah. And I want to talk a lot about that and your kind of career is like shifting more into entrepreneurship and investing. But was there, in terms of like the partying, I mean, I had that experience too. Like I was in college, I just went ape shit. You know, I was drinking 5 nights a week, and like, you know, I felt like I was just very much living for like this moment, and I was like having so much fun with it. And then actually that lasted for probably a lot longer than it sounds like it lasted for you, you know, like, but so was there an experience, like, was there any time when you were like, oh, okay, like I'm like ready to be more serious about it, or like something needs to change or anything like that for you?
Yeah, no, for sure. There were a couple situations where we just got into really big controversies where it was like, if we took a couple, like if there were like 2 more things that went wrong in those situations, or like literally we didn't luck out because we knew one person, like our whole careers would have been messed up, right? Like, or someone would have been like hurt to the point where it was like they would have been probably like they would have left LA or something along those lines, right? And I think a big one was like the Texas situation we had that got like all that national coverage. That just kind of was like, all right, we're getting now, like everyone's viewing us now as like these super irresponsible, idiot, douchebag, like worst like kids, right? Like the worst
Yeah.
influences on people. And it was kind of like, all right, well, if my younger brother is seeing this, like this is on TV, this is on like news, right? Like this is like everywhere. So like my cousins or aunts or uncles or my family, like people in my family, like, you know what I mean? I'm like an example of that Richard's name and all that. So it just started to hit me that I was kind of being still just a kid, like just being an 18, 17-year-old kid, but just like not being responsible with the opportunity that I've been given. And I feel like I have like lightning in a bottle, right? I have this like one huge opportunity and I'm going to waste it doing, you know, the partying and everything. It's like, I don't deserve it. So
Yeah.
what I believe is like with power comes responsibility. And I just wasn't utilizing that responsibility.
You know, it's pretty impressive. I find it impressive that you had that realization so quickly. I mean, it took me like years and years to stop like wanting to party all the time, you know, and like
Yeah.
I think it's a little unfair because for most people that's the case. They can spend 4 years in college just like drinking and partying or whatever,
Raging.
and you know,
Yeah.
raging. And no, there's no spotlight on them necessarily. I mean, maybe there is some now with some social media, you know, being so prevalent, but it's not the same
No.
spotlight. And then there's a lot of people who you know are in your position who are in Hollywood or in you know if become famous and have our talent who just decide they just keep doing whatever the fuck they want, you know, like
Yeah.
and they don't care. And so um I'm curious, like how have you surrounded yourself with people who've been able to help support you on like the path that you do want to take, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that one thing is everyone that's like in my house, I've just been enough to have like these really great friends that live with me. And I think we also have purposely surrounded ourselves with the, you know, the right people around us. But all the boys like Griffin and Michael and Jaden and Anthony that all live here and Quentin, they all are just about people like working and being happy with what they're doing, right? So we all work in very different avenues. Like me, Michael, or Griffin, Michael, and I, we work together all the time. We're very intertwined in our work and we do pretty much everything together. But then there's people in my house like Jaden and Quentin who are very music orientated, right? Like Jaden's signed with Travis Barker. He's always doing that stuff. It's a lot more free flowing. It's more about like vibing out. He'll randomly be singing and we hear him like belting out chords in the house while we're on business calls, right? But we're all still friends and like we make it work because we all just are supporting of each other, right? Like that's the thing where like I lucked out is just like this house with the people we have here. It's very family feeling.
I love that. It's so important
Yeah,
to find that tribe of people, especially when you're in like, I think social media can be like a very, you know, like
lonely
being a creator
place.
can be a lonely place, right? Like, and so,
100%.
yeah, it's like entrepreneurship, you know, when you're just starting off, you're like, oh, there's, you know, I'm just making it up as I go along. I don't know the rules.
Right.
There's no playbook. So, you know, having that support network and like people who are similarly minded is so important.
Yeah, I think especially in a space where you never really know when people are your friends either. Like
You
in
know,
the creative space, it's so fake because everyone wants what you have, right? Like they want you for what you have in the now. And then there's always people that are relevant for a little bit and then they go down. So you always just see these like friend hoppers that are just like going around groups and like, oh, now I'm your best friend. Wait, now I'm your best friend because you get 100,000 more likes than that person does. So now I'm going to be your friend. And then it's like, wait, actually, I'm going to go film with them and talk shit on this person that I'm friends with because I know that will get more views. It's like this weird circle of just everyone backstabbing each other and no one really being a good friend.
so how do you rise above it?
It's like find a group and like I stay very close, like inner circle is what I like to call it. Like it's like I have my inner circle of people and those are like my best friends. Those are the people that I'll ride or die with, like do whatever I can to help them at any moment. And then the rest of the people are like friends, but it's like kind of at an arm's, you know what I mean? Like arm's distance. And then if like I start to become closer and closer, it's like a slower process thing. But LA definitely has taught me that you can't be just like open arms and loving to every single person you meet because so many people try to use you.
Sure. Okay. So tell me about some of the, projects that you've been working on since then? And like, you've been working on a lot of charity projects and a lot of business endeavors. And how do
Yeah.
you think about them? How did you get interested in them? What are you working on?
Yeah. So the first big one was Annie Energy. That was the big project that took like 6-7 months. It was a bunch of calls, like test tasting the drinks and trying to find the perfect like recipe. But we came across that idea because Bryce and I were shotgunning Red Bulls in our YouTube videos. It was like every single YouTube video we were shotgunning energy drinks. Terrible idea. Such a bad idea. Like, I don't know why we did that. That's just like asking for a heart attack. But we were doing it. And then all of a sudden we started seeing this like huge trend of people like challenging us to shotgunning or like trying to shotgun a Red Bull or whatever it was. And they were all tagging us. And it was blowing up on TikTok, like millions of views, hundreds of thousands of likes, like all these people. And I started thinking, I'm like, all right, we're not the most brandable people, right? Like we have a pretty image, like, all right, especially at that time, we were definitely controversial. And we're giving all this free marketing and like promo to Red Bull. Red Bull is just getting everything here. So everything we need to touch, we need to own. And that's when we came kind of across that strategy. And then we came like with the idea of making our own energy drink, was because we saw the trend that we could start by just implementing something like shotgunning an energy drink in our vlogs. And that's been like such a cool project to see, just because we've seen, now people making their own little twists on it, or if it was like putting it under their Christmas tree or having fun with stocking stuff, like, or challenges like with Annie Energy. It's been like super dope. So that was like probably the most fun, like 6 months. That was just like calling, testing out drinks, bunch of fun time. But then more of like the charity projects that I've been working on that are super cool is like Dog for Dog, which was awesome, with Snoop Dogg. That's the dog food company. Every time you buy a bag of dog food, one goes to a shelter. And that's because I was looking at the like euthanization rates in the States, because I got my dog Buddy off of Craigslist. And then a lot of times on Craigslist, like dogs don't get bought. Our house is full of dogs now too. We have like 7 dogs in here. It's crazy. And so like I've always just loved dogs, wanted to get involved. And the euthanization rates in the States is like 700,000 dogs a year are just being killed in shelters.
Wow.
So because, they either aren't getting fed properly, or it's like it can't be clean because they're using that money to buy food, but they're not using it, to keep the shelter nice. So that's what we were trying to do with the dog food company, which has been awesome. And then along just that animal line, like Unhide with Ellen, like the no fur, keeping it hide free, which a lot of people think like when you're shearing the sheep or cutting this stuff for cotton, whatever it is, that they're not killing the animal, they're just taking off the fur. What ends up happening a lot of the time is like, because of the cuts or because of how they are, shearing these animals, it will end up in a lot of like infections or cuts, like wounds that can end up actually leaving a lot of the animals still dead. So just by like the mass amount they're doing and how close quarters are, you know what I mean? So that's just been an awesome focus to kind of worry about like the animal life. It's been very fun.
So let me ask you, double click on this. So one thing I think that's so fascinating that's happening is that the, creators today, unlike creators maybe 20 years ago, if you were like a movie star, television star, are like entirely vertically integrated, right? It's not just like acting, it's also the production company. You're basically the actor, the production company, the screenwriter, and then you're also like the fan club manager, and then also like the creating your own businesses beneath it, like Annie Energy, and like, so you're the business owner and like and the brand as well. And it's I think that it's interesting that like now creator-led brands, and I think this is a trend that's going to continue in the future, like they're starting to be bigger than brands that are, just normal brands out there.
Yeah. So, for sure.
How do you think about what the opportunities are in those businesses? Now it's like, this is kind of getting a farther afield from what I usually talk about, but it's like, I got my investor hat on. I'm like, what are the businesses that are interesting where you think creators have an ability to like build that business, and How do you think that evolves as like creators get, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger? You have TikTokers who have like tens of millions or 100 million
Right.
fans now, or Mr. Beast on YouTube with like, 50 million views a video. And so I'm just curious how you think this grows and evolves over the next couple of years.
No, for sure. I think that when I go to look at companies, like where can I be utilized the most? What leverage do I have? Like I'm looking at CPG a lot, right? Because
Yeah.
I know I can move product. And I think that a lot of influencers are starting to realize that. That's why you see like a lot of people will be making these products that are either in the food or beverage space, like Mr. Beast with his Mr. Beast burger, or Emma Chamberlain has a coffee. Me and Bryce have our energy drink. Like you're gonna see, I think, a lot more of that. And then as well with like, I think there's gonna be a market for like revitalizing old brands. I think that's something that
Yeah.
creators can do. That's huge, that not a lot of creators have done or started doing yet. And when those old iconic companies that are like they have that nostalgia to them, they have that kind of like throwback feel, but they've gone down in value, or they're pretty much not, they're bankrupt, whatever. A creator either going in and buying a company and then rebranding it, blowing it back up, or going in and like having a joint venture with that company, getting an equity play there. That's something that they could use their following and their likeness to such a like great advantage. So I think that's where it's going to get really big.
Creators seem like they're getting a lot more smarter, like smarter about the business side in terms of like owning, a piece of the equity instead of just 10 years ago when, people were famous on Twitter, they were like, okay, I'll just pay per tweet, and it's like,
Yeah.
So what do you think has changed over the last decade as this has matured as an industry?
Yeah. Well, so for me, one of the big things, like when I'm talking to other angels or just like mentors of mine coming into like entertainment, I talked to Ashton Kutcher about this actually specifically, of the like check versus equity play. Like what's more important? What do you go for when you're talking about like tweeting out or, posting a brand deal? And he was telling me how if he would have taken equity in every single brand deal he did, he would be a billionaire by now. And then versus like just taking that check every time. So for me, I think I've always, since then with Michael, been having that conversation about like, you got to fill all the buckets, right? Like you got to have that long-term bucket, that like 1 to 2 year bucket, and then the short term, which is like a brand deal, a pay to post, go live on Twitch and get donations, instant cash out, right? Like so you got to make sure all those buckets are getting filled up. And those deals where you're going into them and you're getting cash, why not just say, I would prefer, instead of getting 50K for this post, why don't you give me 20K and then 35 or 30K in equity as well? And I will do the exact same posting. And then a lot of companies will be like, oh, this is better. Then I don't have to give them as much of our budget, like our marketing budget. We just have to give them a little bit of our and like companies are always are getting more open to that too. And founders are getting more open to that because it gives the creator actual skin in their company, instead of just, here's some money, now we never talk to you again. Now the creator just goes on with his life after that post. He doesn't care if the company does good or not. If a creator has $30,000 worth of your company and that could like 10x, that's talking that now that's $300,000, right? Like a creator is going to feel way more inclined to be engaged with that company, promo that company, check in with the founders, see where it's going. Like, so I think as it's also gotten more in the media, like Mr. Beast, Griffin and I tweeting about investing and getting equity, I think more creators are actually starting to look into it and learn about it as well.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I want to switch gears again. Like, tell me about like I think a lot of people from the outside think that there is like a machinery that is like making, you or other stars like that, just kind of, there's like some Hollywood machinery that like makes people.
Right.
But what I hear when I talk to creators often is like, they figured it out themselves and they like got to a certain place. So like, I think people really want that transparency to like what's the behind the scenes like of like, being an influencer or a creator, and maybe you could shed some light on that. Are you still like, for example, are you still making all your content yourself, or like figuring out what to do, or like and scripting it, or is there like is there a massive Hollywood production company behind you now?
Right. No, I mean, all my content, I still do on my own. Like if it's thinking of a TikTok, which I'm gonna have to go think of an idea for a TikTok after this podcast to film, or if it's like what's my next YouTube bit, that's just me scheduling an hour on my own in my room and going away at the like MacBook, looking up like weird cars or like viral video trends that I see, or like these strange inventions, like epic fails that my friends can recreate. Like I'm just always like diving in, looking for different ideas and turning them into bits. So I would love if a Hollywood production company could just come in and be like, here's all your ideas, Josh. Here's great content for you. Go post it. Like that'd be awesome. It'd save me so much time. But sadly, I do not have that.
Yeah. And it seems to me that the best creators, that I've talked to, like whether it's the Mr. Beast of the world or others, they're obsessed with figuring it out, themselves.
100%.
They're like obsessed with the algorithm. They're obsessed with like what gets people to click on, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or anything else. And I mean, I noticed it for myself, I like with my own posts on Twitter or whatever, it's like the things that I write where I'm like, really like, I know this is going to be good. That's what performs the best,
Right.
Versus like for a while when I was, working at various companies, like I'd have like people from my team like write stuff that was like promotional for the stuff, and it never worked,
I think it's kind of like I was saying with the creators getting like skin in the company. It's just like having that actual passion, or having that actual, like you do it yourself, right? When someone else is doing it for you, it's just, you get that disconnect.
Yeah. Okay. So that leads me to another question I had, which was, influencer, creator, YouTuber, Twitch streamer, that's like the number one career that people want now, young people.
Right.
And so like,
100%.
what would you say to them, or like, how do you advise like people who want to go down the path that you've gone down?
I would say that it's a path that you got to put a lot of hard work into, and you got to do it because you love it. Like too many people, I think, want to be a gamer or want to be a social media star, TikTok or YouTuber, whatever it is, because they see the lifestyle, like they see the Instagram pictures, or they see the montage in a YouTube video that you're partying, and they're like, that looks like so much fun. Their life is so epic. Like their life is amazing, blah, blah, blah. They don't see the like 10 hours of editing that was put into that video, right, by some editor. And they don't see the like going around trying to direct this whole scene while you're at a party instead of actually partying. They don't see like all the back end stuff that's like actually put in to make that video work, that 6-minute video, right? So I think that as well, they start like glorifying the money from it. They're like, I want to be a creator so I can make $1 million without doing any work, and I can just like post videos and make millions of dollars. Like if you want to do it for just the money, that's another reason why it's just not going to work. Like you got to be in it because you just love doing the actual creating. You love doing the entertainment. Like you love entertaining people. You love getting people to laugh. You love, playing video games with your friends, whatever it is. Like you got to actually love it.
That resonates so much, because I mean, it's the same thing with entrepreneurship or sports or anything. Like people want to be a professional basketball player, but it's like,
yeah,
those guys work out all the time. They're spending all the time like practicing their craft, right? Like if you want to be a famous
nothing but play basketball. It's like that is their life, like all day, every day. And it's like it's the same for anything when you want to be the best at that in the profession, right? Like if you want to be a top 10 social media person or a TikToker, like you're gonna have to put a lot more work into it than the below 90 of that top 100. You know what I mean? Like to be in that top 10, you just always got to put in so much more work. And I think people just don't realize that.
Yes. Yeah. Nobody realizes it from the outside, how much work anything is. It seems, it's very easy to read the highlights and see like the headlines or the Instagram posts and think, oh, that's so easy. Like that's a lifestyle I want.
Even me being like a TikToker, and I do YouTube and I do Instagram, and I'm kind of this like social media entertainer across platforms. Like sometimes I look at Twitch streamers, right? And I've seen it. And they play video games. They play video games for 8 hours a day. And they just sit there and stream. And I'm like, fuck you. Fuck you. You make so much money and all you do is play. But I'm sure they do so much more than I even realize, right? I'm an outsider. I'm sitting there from the outside being like, oh, yeah, I would way rather play video games all day and make money. But I'm sure after 4 months of it, I'd be like, fuck this. Like, I'm going crazy right now. And it's the same thing people say about TikTokers. Like, they're like, you guys don't do anything. You just sit there with your shirts off and film like a 15-second video. But it's like, I'm fine. I'm working. Like, I'm doing things. I'm not sitting around all day. So it's like, I don't know what other creators are doing, but I'm finding things to do. So, I mean, like, that's what I just understand that I think like everyone from an outside point of view, they're always going to think it looks like the grass is always greener on the other side.
For sure. For sure. For what it's worth, I think being a Twitch streamer is really hard because you have to like just play video. First of all, when something becomes your job, it's like, it's not as fun anymore. So playing video games all the time, it's like, and then you have to be engaging the audience and like talking to people, like, but they're chatting. It's kind of, it's tough.
Yeah. You got to stay, you literally have to somehow you have to make watching a video game without even playing it entertaining. Like that's a skill. If you can make me want to watch you play a video game, like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it can be a grind sometimes. I mean, a lot of the time, you're doing that 8 hours a day. I think a lot of those guys who are at the top, they want to bank enough cash that eventually they can do something else,
Right. Yeah. They understand that they kind of have it like they have this like hot streak or they have it like good for maybe a year, 2 years. Cause streaming is a lot like being a TikToker. You never know how long your career is going to last, right? Like people come and go. So once you get it, they're probably just like, I better stream every second I get. So then when I'm like 5 years down the road, I could retire at 25, 30 and have enough money to like just invest and show off my money.
So tell me about that, because social media is so new and there's you don't know how long it's going to last, what's going to come next, et cetera. Like, how do you think about building a career for the future?
Yeah, no, that's something that I've always thought about, but I think we're talking more and more about just like as time goes on, as we see even people around us that like used to kind of be right beside us in social media, like start to go down, right? Like, so I think it's just like filling that long-term bucket. It's doing those equity plays. It's doing those long-term partnerships with different companies, if that's like an advisory role or being like at Remus Capital, like the fund, like what I have with them, like that's me like taking the initiative. Okay, I have this next year. I'm gonna go learn as much as I can at this venture fund, right? So that I know that I'm gonna be more educated and more set up myself when I go to invest in companies, and I feel safer that could be a real job for me if TikTok goes away, right? And so it's just focusing on those things, and then also building up enough midterm things like a podcast with Barstool Sports and Dave Portnoy. Like that's a year contract, right? Like we had a really, really good first part of that, I would say, like podcast. And like we're going into 2021 now, like, and this podcast is killing it. Like BFFs is doing super good. So it's like that's another long or like mid long-term thing I have going on. So it's just always focusing on those and keeping like new things coming and people kind of like guessing at what's going to be next, right? Like what's the next big thing?
Yeah, I love that. And on the investing side, tell me about what you're learning on as a VC. I feel like being a venture capitalist is one of the best jobs ever. It's
right.
better than it's one of the best finance jobs, I always say, because you decide to invest and you make the investment, but then you can't do anything about it. You can't like sell it, right? You can't, because it's in a liquid stock and there's no buyers necessarily for these early stage companies. So you just have to hold your position. So unlike a fund manager of like a hedge fund manager or something like that, there's no decisions to make after you actually invest. And, your job is every day you're like out there talking to smart people, trying to learn about business. And, it can be a lot of fun for the right person. Like, how has it been for you?
Yeah, for me, it's been super cool because like I talked about when I was a kid, I was like this business-minded little kid, always trying to find different things to do to make money. And now it's kind of like I'm sitting in a different position where I have the money and I'm like listening to these founders that have all these great ideas, right? It's like it's this whole like switch role of when I was a kid where I like needed the money to do what I wanted or to do these ideas. Like now I have it and I'm giving to other people. So that's the coolest thing, like learning from these young founders or older founders or whatever, and getting to hear their great ideas, getting to learn from them and see like where they would do things differently than I would. And I'm like, that's what I should have been doing. That's what I need to look out for. That's, or when they mess up or I mess up and I invest in a company and it was like bad, you learn the most from that, right? Because you see your money loss, you're like, oh my God. And it's like, but following that company, even after I didn't invest in it, right? Like maybe there's a company out there and I pass on it. I'm like, I don't want to invest in them. I'm going to follow that company so that I can see, okay, did I mess up when I said pass? Like, or was what I thought correct? Like, is that something now that I can look out or look for in other companies? Is that, you know what I mean? So it's just been like this really fun learning experience.
And how do you think about building credibility as a VC and an investor? Because I think a lot of people might come in and say, oh, like, I want Josh to promote my thing, or I want, they're really looking at it from a marketing angle, but like, what are you trying to build there reputationally, as an investor?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's partly why I wanted to go and be involved at Remus Capital, like, because I knew being a TikToker or being a social media star, as at least that's what like people see me as first, right? I need to prove everyone to more of an extreme, like why they're wrong. So I need to take that extra time. I need to take that next year and like go learn as much as I can every Sunday from whatever 9 to 12 when we're doing those calls with Remus to figure out like, okay, what do these guys all know that have been doing this their whole lives that I don't know? And I think just continuing to invest. And then when I do the most I can for those companies, like really prove my worth, right? Like if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And then also go beyond, like a little bit of like, the under promise, over deliver strategy, just so that every single time I'm dealing with a company, they're always happy with what I do. I never want to be in the position where I'm over promising and then I still deliver so much, but I under deliver because I was hyping myself up and then I look bad, right? Yeah. So I think it's just always doing the best I can for the company or being involved, like with Pear Pop, for example, like what we've been able to do with those guys and what they've been able to do with us has been awesome since we invested. Like when we're in with a company and they really give us like some like, full reign, or they're just like, go do your thing, go make content, go do a campaign, go promote this how you can. Like we were able to create so much press for Pear Pop this past like weekend. And with the help of Barstool, like, and Pear Pop, we raised over $200,000 for small businesses during COVID. Right. So anything like that, like I'm always going to be doing little small, or I guess that was pretty big, but campaigns or ideas to just prove my worth as an investor.
I love that. I think I paid Griff for a duet that I'm still thinking about how I want to do it. So that'll be fun.
I think you told me about that. He said how you got one of his duets. I was like, that's pretty fun. I want to see a little Griff and Justin Kahn duet.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? How do you think social media evolves? I think everybody's curious for the magic ball and like what it looks like in the future. But I think there was this dry spell, it seemed like, between after Snapchat and then maybe until like TikTok, where didn't seem like there was that much innovation. But now it seems like there's so much, there's more and more interest in the space, especially on the investing side. There's more people investing in the creator space. I'm curious how you think this, what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because like what we've seen is this short form content, because Vine was big, right? Vine was this huge platform. It was like a short video content platform. And then everyone moved into pictures right after that, which was even like less time engaged. Like when you look at a picture, you're looking at it even less time than a video. And then after that, it went to YouTube, and YouTube became this like huge platform, and that's long form videos, right? Like, and people were getting into like 20-minute vlogs and 25-minute vlogs and like 10-minute YouTube videos, and people were watching the whole thing. And it was like this new version of TV. And then TikTok comes out and just kills everyone's like engagement or like time they can spend focusing on something to 15 seconds, right? Like some people watch a TikTok for 5 seconds and be like, this is boring, and just like swipe. Like they can't even watch the full video.
Yeah.
So it's like, do they do another, like, for me, I'm always wondering, like, are they going to revert back and be like, all right, we want a little bit longer again, like where it was like Vine to YouTube, or are they going to find a way to like do something where it's even shorter or like a virtual reality? I have no idea at this point. It's
like
just,
a 1 second video or something that's just so compelling.
Yeah. It's just like 1 second of like screaming a sentence so quickly that it's just like you get it all right in 1 second. Like, oh shit, it kind of like scares you a little bit. That's where social media is going to. No, I think live streaming is going to become really like is getting bigger and bigger too. I think live streaming isn't going to slow down.
What do you think that is?
I think because of where I think gaming in like the esports world and like these gaming tournaments are just going to get huge. I think it's going to get massive. I think like during COVID too, it gave like some people like another or a newfound like appreciation and love for gaming and like what it can do, bringing people together. Because like, you know what I mean? Anyone can put on a headset in a video game. It doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, anything like that. And you're just all on like a equal kind of like friends playing video games. You know what I mean? There's no like, oh, I can tell you have nicer clothes than me at school, so that makes you more popular, blah, blah, blah. Or you're better at gym than me, so that makes you cooler. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like everyone's hopping on and doing it. So I think during COVID in this time, like people just found a newfound love for it. And I think it's just going to keep growing.
Awesome. Just a few last questions. Like one is, any reflections from your career? Or I guess my final question really is like, what's your message to Gen Z out there? You know, I feel like you have this voice of like Gen Z, and I'm curious, like, what's your message to them today?
Yeah, I would say my biggest message, and like one thing I always go back to, is the saying, like what my dad always said to me as a kid. I have it tattooed on my wrist, and it's like, with power comes responsibility, right? Or yeah, so with power comes responsibility. And I think people look at that saying, or they've heard me talk about it because I've talked about it a few times, and they think that means like, oh, I need to be a famous person to have power, or I need to have a lot of money, or I need to like own a company. It's doing the little things. Like I found like just doing a little thing for one person in their life, or doing that one extra favor, or going to that one lunch with someone that's down. Like I've had so many opportunities, and there's been so many people that have been there to help me with things that I've needed huge help with, or like have come and saved my ass just because I've done like one little thing with that power I have in a friendship or in a relationship. And like power doesn't mean like you're controlling or you're better or you're like stronger than someone. It's just like realizing what you can do and realizing like what actually your words, your actions, all that, like what that can create and what outcomes can come from that, and just using that responsibly. So I think that's like my biggest message. If it's doing something for your younger brother, sister, kids at your school, like realize what power you have and use it responsibly.
That's beautiful. I like that.